So as anticipation builds for the return of the 4 astronauts, we're joined by a familiar face to our coverage. Roberta Bondar is Canada's first female astronaut. She joins us now from Florida. Thanks once again for making time for us.
Pleasure. Thank you.
So, Roberta, first, what do you think is the most important thing we learned from this Artemis II mission so far?
Well, I think it's hard to put a value on individual things because there's so many of them. I think overall, this was a test flight, and so far, it's been extremely successful in testing out this vehicle. I think that has to be number one. And I would have to give number two, as a life scientist, something that was really important, and that is that people were able to survive into deep space yet again, 50 years later, doing different things and monitoring different things. And so these data will be very important to us when they return. And I think the third thing for all of us, I think, around the world are these wonderful images that we have from this particular space flight, that the crew's description. I mean, it advances science, it advances the view of Earth and the moon together. And I think it advances how we think of ourselves in a place in the universe, even just a small step in that direction.
You know, it's interesting. When I spoke to you earlier during the course of this mission, we had a conversation about what it's like being inside the shuttle during the course of liftoff. Now, I want to ask you, when we talk about, you know, what it is, what it entails, 38,000 kilometers an hour is the speed, 2,700 degrees Celsius. What is it like being inside this fireball?
Well, again, it's wonderful that we're a few decades later because the technology certainly has improved. I mean, I could make all kinds of comparison with the shuttle. It's very interesting to know that this crew is coming in faster because they're coming in from the moon, much as the Apollo astronauts came in faster. And so the angle, actually the angle that they make coming into the atmosphere is much sharper than we made. When we're in low Earth orbit coming back, we're not going as fast. We have less speed, but we're also nowadays cooler coming in. But in the shuttle days when I flew, we had to actually cold soak the orbiter at night before we came back in to get rid of extra heat because we didn't have cool garments, and we got very, very hot. In fact, in those days, the commanders and pilots would rip the rubber neck dam away from their throats because they got so much heat built up inside. Because when you come back to the atmosphere, it gets very, very hot because of the friction. It's just, it is very, very hot. This vehicle is supposedly going to maintain a nice 75 degrees, and they've got great suits on that if they have a problem, the suits themselves have an internal mechanism so that they can keep cool. So that in itself is wonderful. And then the speed that they come in, as I mentioned, the low Earth orbit takes a lot longer to come around because we're at a different angle, lower angle, but they're coming at a very steep angle, coming in very fast. And it'll be really nice for them to hit that nice water of the Pacific, I'm sure.
No doubt. Of course, though, I'm wondering what also goes through your mind during the course of that descent and during the process of splashdown, because as you've said, and we've had a chance to also speak with the head of the Artemis program at NASA too, everything is just so precise here. What is going through your mind when you are an astronaut in the shuttle, in this case in a capsule, during splashdown?
There are things that would go through my mind now that didn't go through my mind then, for sure, because we had the biggest foam strike against the reinforced carbon-carbon on the wings of the shuttle that we didn't know about. In fact, it was the largest one before the accident on Columbia. And those are the kinds of things when you come back, you're thinking of whatever the current technology is and hoping that it works. And on this particular flight, they know that they looked at the heat shield and the angle of entry and the kinds of things it did for Artemis I. They learned from that, and they are trying to improve the heat shield coming in on Artemis II, changing the angle, the kind of entry they're having. So I think the crew are thinking that we did our best, and let's see how this technology works. But you're going so fast that in a blink of an eye, you've traveled miles, and there's nothing you can do about it. I mean, you just have to hope that the technology works, and you have to trust in all the testing that's been done. And you have to remember, this is still a test vehicle, and this is the one of the very crucial steps in flying this vehicle out. So they know this. They're test pilots, and this is the job that they signed on to do. So they're going to be very, very focused on listening and thinking and being very, very clear about their observations, because they're all still important coming back to the water.
And Roberta, I wanted to ask you too, you had left a farewell recording for your mom during the time when you went on to your mission back in the 90s. I'm wondering, is this the scariest moment of a mission?
I have always said the scariest moment is the launch, the landing, and everything in between.
Roberta, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. That is Roberta Bondar. She is Canada's first female astronaut.